It's just that easy. There we go. There we go. It's doable. It's doable. It's doable. Holy. No fire, no fire. Okay, here we go, here we go. Here we go. Oh, big pop, big pop. They're dead, they're dead. They're already dead, they're already dead, they're already dead. Okay, King's over. Wave 15 cleared! Wave 15 cleared! Early POV. Okay, can I do the bosses? I have my doubts, but we'll try. Magi there. Come on, explosion please. Oh, I saw one. Oh, it's doable. It is doable. Boom! Look, my gear sucks, okay. But at least it's doable. Yamato Kudasai. That's please stop. Easy peasy! Last wave. Wave 15. Completely hands-free. Completely hands-free. Good move though. So it's not really AFK, but as close as it gets. You want to play Breach? This might be the one. I'm surprised there's so many people who want to do the Pathfinder build. I'm surprised. Click off the 3 music. Yup. Yeah, that's my affliction build. Thing is though, that's very specific, right? And welcome to 3.26 Password Stun Chieftain, the full guide. This time around, I have made it a vast improvement to the way I present the information, so hopefully it's easy to follow along. League start is the build you should follow to get to the minimum requirements. So I have several suggestions. One is tuna, volcanic fish or snaking, or any variant of volcanic fish or snaking, PoxRF, and rotting magma. So the benefits of PoxRF is that there's less respecking, there's more shared uniques, however, it is slower, and typically it has more of an issue pushing the atlas than volcanic fisher. So the benefits of VFOS is that it is stronger and faster, but it doesn't share the same uniques, and it requires a big respec. So depending on how you like it, you can take your choice. I will quickly mention that Marauder Act 1, Act 2 is probably some of the most brutal league starts there is. Now, I would highly recommend everyone to practice a league start before 3.26 so that you can optimize to a certain extent your Act 1 and Act 2. Because trust me, it is painful, very painful. Now, minimum requirements. So this build basically operates at level 85-ish, right? At level 85, you get to swap into the Cast and Stun build from PoxRF or whatever other league starter you have. Now, the mandatory requirements is a blood notch that's 50% or better. So why 50%? It is because 50% combined with the stun mastery gives 60% damage recovered when stunned. And together with Petrified Blood, it lets you become quote-unquote hit immune. I'll explain this in a further video to be very precise, but TLDR, 50% or better. Immutable, while is technically optional, is a huge QL buff. Otherwise, you get stunned non-stop moving around. Now, for the roll ranges, anything under 961 is the same, and 961 to 1000 is better, but they're all the same as well. Why? Because under 961, your stuns will last 0.66 milliseconds per stun, but 961 is 0.33. And at the end of the day, personally, I think there's no difference, but some people say there is, and it's up to you. Now, uniques. You definitely want a Cloak of Flame, Immortal Flesh, Valerium, and Rise of the Phoenix. With these 4 uniques, you can pretty much go through all the requirements for Cast and Stun for Ultimatum. Prison Gems. So, Petrified Blood, you should be leveling it as soon as possible. So, in the campaign, whenever you can buy PB, buy it and level it. A big mistake everyone makes is that they have a level 1 0 quality PB moving into the endgame, and it's much worse than a 2020. This is because you need 30% recoup to offset the degen, which you can get from infused flesh. Pantheon, guys, do not take Brand King. It's a cast and stun build. If you take Cannot Be Stunned, it will brick your build. If you take the first default and third optional choices on Soul of Lunaris, Major Pantheon. And as for the Minor Pantheon, Tsukuhama is very good for Ultimatum. Flasks. So flasks are pretty much required. Flasks can be maintained through the Flagellant or Maxichus prefix found on all utility flasks. So the way to craft these is you want to roll an eye level 80 flask for either Draymond Green's Flagrant Flask prefix or Masochist +2 prefix. And then you want to augment for a chance to freeze, shock, ignite suffix. If you cannot get your hands on a Razor of the 7th Sun, for some reason, they should be very cheap. Now, this is because you want to get up to 100% chance to ignite generically. This lets your explosions on Chieftain ignite and prolife that way. As for the rest, you should use the bestiary crafting to craft immune to shock, immune to CB, and immune to poison. Those three should give you immunities that are required for Ultimatum. Lastly, you have Syndicate Flask suffixes. You can choose from damage taken leeches life and or 3% life regen. I would prefer the damage taken leeches life over the regen, but either or are fine. So in the end, you will have 5 suffixes. You will have Can Be Shock, CB and Bleed Immune, Poison, and the last 2 flex suffixes are Regen, Damage taken leeches life, and or chance to ignite on your suffixes. So for your glove and boot implicits, what you should be aiming for is to use lesser Eldritch implicit currencies to roll for Ignite Spread on your glove and 5 res max res and on your boots alongside life regen recovery rates on your boots. If for some reason that's the embers are too rare early on, you can also replace your Ignite Prolif with Fan the Flames on a medium cluster. One more thing for the early builds is that Impale immunity can often save you. So previously, we thought that Hinder immunity was the saving grace for some early ultimatums, but it turns out it's probably Impale. So Impale immunity prevents you from taking reflected damage, which cannot proc a stun. And this is good when you're early game, when your life pool is low and you don't have defiance. Okay, for early upgrades, you're gonna look for a Hateful Cursor ASAP, and then you should anoint the Defiled Forces onto your amulets. Alternatively, you can take 3 points for Defiled Forces and anoint a life node like Blood Siphon, Utmost Strength for the strength which is equal to HP on your amulets. Now the first upgrade we want is Prism Guardian. Prism Guardian is typically a chip shield that allows us to get Dex or Res, and most importantly, life reservation efficiency. This allows you to unreserve Purity Fire from Eternal Blessing, move Malevolence onto Eternal Blessing, and run the Purity Fire raw. This, in conjunction with the 20% life reservation efficiency, gives you just enough reservation to hit 56% unreserved life without having Enlighten. And sometimes, if your resists and regen don't match up, you can take Brink of Death to add on the extra regen for low life. Okay, the next PvP preset is the T16. The main difference here is you're looking for cluster jewels, medium fire, and medium area clusters. At eye level 68 to 83, you can reforge fire on Harvest Bench to look for Wrapped in Flames and or Fan the Flames. For your area clusters, you're gonna ult spam for Expansive Might, Augment Regal, and Settle for a decent second modifier. This ranges from Powering Threats to other area of effect modifiers. The reason why we want area effects is because it is this huge QOL and it makes your RF big enough to kill the phantasms from the Hateful Cursor, and also makes the explosions of the Hateful Cursor phantasms to explode onto the boss. Moving on to T16 Recom. Now, we don't know for sure if Recombinator still has the same mechanics as it used to, so I'm going to briefly touch over some of these stuff. First, we're going to look for max res jewels. So these can be any modifiers. So you have a 7% life, 1% cold res max res, and a damage per time suffix. You can buy that, go to the Harvest Bench, swap your cold res to fire, and then change it like that. You can also divine your modifiers by going fire to cold, cold back to fire. to get your 2% max res jewels. The reason why I want to do this is because we can now swap Purifier for Flesh and Stone, but you need to have enough max res to do this. While doing this, you can also consider trading your recoup nodes for Brink of Death, and this allows you to take the mastery where nearby enemies can't regen, and then you can take recoup on jewel suffixes instead. Around this time, you can also consider between a rare scepter and or a Darkseer. So the benefits of a Darkseer is that it gives you up to 200 flat life, which is amazing. And it also gives you Malediction, which is I think 10% more damage-ish approximately, and 10% less damage taken. And this is really good to help survive in high tier T17 content. But if you just want damage, a Scepter is very good as well. So moving on to the endgame preset within the PvP, I have my example there shown for you as what I was running in the preview video. Now, I'm going to go over the priorities in items and upgrades from most important to least important. Firstly, if you're interested in Simulacrum, you should invest in a Defiance ASAP. The reason is that there's a modifier in Simulacrum, or Delirium specifically, called Wasting Touch. This lets enemies that hit you apply a debuff that reduces recovery rate. And at 10 stacks, I believe it's minus 90%. And this will make you degen and make you not regen. So to counter this, Defiance will keep you alive through this debuff. Moving on, large clusters are the next biggest upgrade. They are going to be expensive because they're relatively hard to craft. I'll try and make a crafting guide later on for the endgame version, but ultimately they give you both damage and area effects and sockets for more normal jewels. Next is the Essence Elder Helmet. This can be either a 2 mod helmet or a 3 mod helmet. The 2 mod helmet is much cheaper, where you Essence for 30% increase damage for elemental or damage when on low life. They are both the same, but you're gonna look for the Elder modifier increase burning damage. If you are very lucky, you can go for a 3 mod helmet with Essence mod, burning damage, and conk effects on the same item. Now, depending on whether you can still recom or not, this will be up for debate for recoms. We're not sure. Moving on to the next upgrade, that's the Recom Shield. The Recom Shield, assuming it still exists, is the upgraded shield to Prison Guardian. It has life on it, as well as PDR, max fire res, as well as the Shaper or Hunter, 30% reduce reservation on your socketed gems. Now, this shield is very, very important. However, I'm not sure if you can still do it anymore. But if you can, very good. And then the next upgrade is the Unflinching Forbidden Flesh and Forbidden Flame. This is stolen from the Juggernaut's tree, gives +1 endurance charge, and is much more reliable on generation of endurance charges. And you save 3 points by removing Inexorable. Lastly, we have Watcher's Eye for Malevolence. I would suggest up to 2 mods is reasonable. 3 is too expensive. So your options here are number 1, damage over time multiplier while affected by Malevolence. 2, faster damage or faster ignite by Malevolence. And 3, life gained on hits while affected by Vitality. Now, if you have this third modifier for Vitality, you should run a level 1 Vitality on your build somewhere that's not inside your Eternal Blessing links. And lastly, Mage Blood is probably by far the least important upgrade. This is because the nature on this build has permanent flasks already. So having a permanent flask upgrade to permanent flasks is marginal. However, I will mention that if you plan to go Magic Find, you should try aim for Mage Blood earlier, because Mage Blood allows you to run a Gold Flask and a Divination Distillate for an easy 150% rarity increase by default. And that is pretty much the upgrade path for the endgame. As for the tree changes depending on how many jewels you have, as well as the levels you have. I would stretch towards the jewelless tree last because that's the least efficient points. And yeah, one more thing for endgame, it is probably worth considering to using adorned if you can find an 88% or better adorned. Below 88%, I wouldn't recommend, because our build utilizes all 4 modifiers on a jewel, 2 prefixes, 2 suffixes so efficiently that adorned is actually not that great for its investment. So for example, on our prefixes, we have life percent, we have fire damage percent, I believe we have area damage as well. Suffixes, we have fire.multi multiplier, recoup, max res. So the variety in variations on your jewels is very easy to find an upgrade. Sometimes you can also find yourself missing dex or int, and those suffixes on a jewel come in very handy. Okay, so this is the cast when stunned Ultimatum modifier tier list. It ranges from beneficial to take if you must, and do not take. And then exceptions when it applies. Now, we'll start off real quick. This one here is extremely beneficial. More arena makes it so your ignites cover the entire ultimatum, and it makes it go by really quickly. The next on this list is fast enemies. So the faster they come to hit you, the faster you proc cast when stunned, the better. And that pretty much is it for our beneficial ones. Next up, 3. So lightning, fire, CB, blades up to 3. We have, honestly, lightning and fire are both beneficial. Actually, so is this. In fact, they're good because they trigger your being hit. This is moderate. What else do we have? This is free, so remove mana and ES, we don't care. Mana cost as damage, we don't care. What else do we have here? Resistance is free because Chieftain gives minus 20 res irrelevant of their resistance. So this is free. Unlucky criticals is free, we don't crit. And moving on, we have cannot evade is free, and to the moderate ones. So overwhelm or fizz reduction, I would put it in take it if you must. So if you're weaker early game, definitely take it if you must, because this is potential for being one shot. Let's go one by one now. This is Curse Reflection. I would say it is moderate because if you don't proc your flask for Curse Immunity, it can be annoying because you give punishment to yourself and you're always no life, right? That's pretty bad. Blood Altar. This is honestly, take it if you must. Take it if you must. If you can move outside the area, it's also not too bad. Extra's Chaos is annoying. If you have low Chaos res, don't take it, obviously. This one here is buff expires faster. It is actually annoying because it makes your endurance charges tick down pretty quickly, which can be very bad. So poison is annoying. Always crits. This is the first, do not take. Under no circumstances should you ever take always crits. Always crits will kill you because of anything that does cold damage will kill you. And to go together with this, we have Prismatic. So this is exception. Now, if your map has months' increased chance to crits, or something increased crit chance, blah blah blah, or you have this over here, you do not want to take these two together. Together, these are instant death, right? And if your map has cold damage, it's also very dangerous. So, exception here. Otherwise, don't take, right? But you can under some circumstances. Here is Suppression. I'll put it annoying. So, turns out Suppression actually reduces your damage over time damage by 50%. So, this is half damage. Ramping damage is annoying because you take more damage. Hinder is pretty much free, I think. If you have Hinder immunity, completely free. I'm under the belief now that Hinder doesn't actually do anything. And it wasn't Hinder, it was Impale that was destroying the build earlier leagues. Cooldown, don't really care. I don't think it matters. Less AoE is really annoying. Take it if you must. It makes it so your explosions, especially your phantasms against the boss, they might not hit them. Rare modifiers, moderates, droughts do not set exception. Obviously, if you have a mage blood, then it doesn't matter. But otherwise, do not take, right? But, you know, obviously, if you need to use flask, don't take it. No damage is annoying, but not too bad. No regen. Absolutely do not take. For a RF build, you should never take this. Ruin, do not take. Unless you're block, okay? If you go Surveillance at 97% block, then I believe it is doable. But otherwise, don't take. Same thing with Ruin, right? If you have Surveillance, 90% block, then it is actually doable. But otherwise, do not take. This is block, we don't care. It's free. Charge stealing is pretty bad. I'll put it as take if you must, because you lose endurance charges. This is not Bloody Altar, right? This is actually bonus of physical damage. And actually, it is not that bad. I'll put it in free. I haven't had any issues picking this. So these two, bonus elemental, bonus physical, are both free. This is your auras affect you as well. So, or they affect enemies. So you give them malevolence. I don't think you care. So it's free. Can't be stunned is free for them. Oops. Raging Dead 4. This is moderate. So 1 to 3 is beneficial. But if your build is a little bit weak, then well, Raging Dead 4 can kill you. It is, from what I understand, fire pen and shotgunning. So if you get unlucky to take, you stand at the very start of the fireballs, you can get shotguns and it can kill you. And then Chaos 4, just don't take this. The degen is so severe that you can't regen through it. Unless you have Defiance. If you have Defiance, probably okay. Razor 4. This leaves super heavy Fizz degen on the floor. And even with Defiance, you end up dying a lot to this. I wouldn't take this. And lastly, it is Cold 4. Take if you must. So the reason why Cold 4 is bad is because it is a non-stunning hit that freezes you, but only if you like walk into it, right? So if you just don't run into the Cold 4 balls, it's fine, but it is definitely dangerous, yeah. Especially when Trialmaster, right? If Trialmaster has Cold 4 balls and just moving around everywhere, you take a non-stunning freeze hit, it can kill you, right? It's like shotgunning that does not stun you, and you can die. And in fact, you're right. If there's a Cold 3, put an annoying over here. Cold 3, Cold 4, and then Cold 1, Cold 2 over here. And that is it. That is the Ultimatum key list modifier guide. Many Ultimatum players ask, what effects drops from Ultimatum? Now, we know for a fact that only catalysts are affected by map quantity. However, this also means that your Trialmaster will drop more catalysts if you kill the Trialmaster in a high quantity map. You can notice that sometimes you can drop up to 14 to 18, even 20 painted catalysts in a very juiced tier 17. However, if you do a white tier 16, there can be times where you only get like 3 to 4 painted catalysts. Over time, that does add up. Now, people also ask, are tier 17 rewards better than tier 16? Truthfully, I don't know. However, we do know that tier 16 red maps have better rewards than tier 11 red maps. So, if that logic applies, then it is better safe than sorry to run tier 17s in case they really do have better rewards. We don't know. For the regex on T16s and T17s for the Castle Sun Chieftain, it will be included and updated in the handbook for Castle Stunned, linked below the guild docs. For tier 17s, I would focus specifically on Abomination. This is because Abomination makes it relatively easy to kill with your explosions on the ring procs. For League Start, my plan tree is to go over here, take track missions, take map drop effect, and just try push map sustain and Atlas, and eventually farm something to drop while getting, you know, your first 50, your first 60 points to buy a blood notch. That's my goal. So the basic Atlas for your tree should look something like this. You go over here and you pick up all the Ultimatum nodes. The only exception is over here. Up to you. You can choose to take stone circles or not. I don't like it, so I don't take this. And you do not take Ruinous Wager. Do not take it. Okay. You take these, and you take these to Trial Master. Now, Rune and Gauntlet you don't take unless you have a Savalan and you're block based build. And when you get more Atlas points, you can choose to either spec into X Edition or start taking the map effect nodes to increase the map quantity drops. Because again, it affects catalysts, but that's up to you. X Edition can be quite nice if you like this. Just don't take Gwenin and you're gonna be good. That's my choices for those. Some people like to take Breach, but honestly, this is your base tree, and then you have 74 points left into whatever you want. Ritual, sure. You know, Shrine Boxes, sure. Doesn't matter. Base tree, and then the rest of the points, up to you. So, moving on to general knowledge and misconceptions. 1. Spell damage does not affect damage over time unless otherwise specified, such as Arcane RF, Blight, Contagion, etc. They don't benefit. And neither does Elemental Penetration. 10 does not affect damage over time. Cold Criticals. So cold criticals actually do not stun you. However, freezing cold hits can still stun. So the way this works is that anything that is a base cold damage and a final critical on you will become a cold critical that does not stun. And that is why we take the mastery to avoid being crit on, so that even if they do cold damage and they do cold criticals, if we've been stunned in the last 4 seconds, we will not be cold critical. Wrapped in Flame. So Wrapped in Flame is a notable on the medium cluster that gives you chance to cover enemies in Ash on hits while you are burning and cannot be chilled while you are burning. So the reason why this is very strong is because Righteous Fire will make you considered as burning always. Now, some of you might be questioning, why do you have Blade 4, Firestorm, and all these other skills in your utility Cast and Sun setup? It's because those skills hit many times and allows you to proc Wrapped in Flame, cover in Ash on enemies more consistently. Next up is Ignite Chance for your explosions and Detonate Dead. Now, it is important to note that on PUB, you should import and check your Explosion Hinakura Ignite Chance. So typically, I included earlier that you should include the option to have a Ignite Chance flask when you roll your flasks. This is because sometimes if you don't do things to the exact degree, you're gonna miss out Ignite Chance and lower the proc rate from explosions that prolife. Now, there are several options to fix this. The best option is Ignite Chance tattoos. These tattoos can replace a strength node for a 5% chance to ignite. And the endgame version of the build will be using Ignite Chance tattoos. However, Last thing, they rose sharply in price, and that was an absolute pain. This league, I'm gonna give you the alternatives, so you can, instead of anointing defiled forces, you can take defiled forces and then take the increased chance to ignite on cursed enemies mastery as well as the flask, and this should get you to 100% pretty much no matter what. You should take the full ascendancy before you swap every single time. You need all 8 nodes for your build. Fulcrum is often a topic of contention, so personally I am not a fan of Fulcrum. You can if you want, right? You can put out your weapon and shield for Fulcrum. I didn't like it because I didn't like not being able to shield charge, and Leap Slam with Fulcrum feels awful. Also keep in mind that if you take off the reservation shield, you're going to have to change your jewels for aura reservations once again. Next up is block and stun interactions. A lot of people get confused over block and stun. You can still be stunned while blocking. So if you take a stunning hit and you block it, you still get stunned. Now this also means that if surveillance still exists, you can go full block, but I would only recommend this for Ruling Gauntlets, Ultimatums, and nothing else. This is because when you are blocking, you take no damage, right? But if you get stunned, you also, aka, take no damage. So when you use Blood Notch, you are immune to all hits except one shots. AKA, you have 100% block unless you get one shot. Now, if you're gonna reduce your max hit and make it easier to get one shot to incorporate block into your build, then that's gonna be making your build worse. Unless, of course, you're doing something very specific. Now, to make this more understandable, it's as if you currently have a 100% chance to block with the Blood Notch on. And if you add on block, you're blocking 130, 140% block, 150% block, doesn't do anything. Now, next up is more AoE. So AoE is very important because you need to be able to have your phantasms explode and reach the actual explosion to hit the enemy. So on bosses such as Trial Master, you will sometimes notice that your phantasms might be a little bit too far away from the boss, and AoE will fix this. And of course, more AoE equals more fun. The corruption priority is only on a few uniques. One, Cloak of Flames, you should look for either 50% increased damage or max res. Those are both better than the third option, which is Fierce Seduction while stationary. And for your Valerium and Hateful Cursor, if you can corrupt either all res or X immunity, then you should. As for dual corruptions, you should consider Hinder immunity. It might be helpful, I'm not sure anymore. CB, if you have a bleed corruption in your ring, and a 2% MRM for endgame. In addition, area effects also good, damage percent also good. Most of them are generically good. Common mistakes. Common fucking mistakes. 1. You took Brand King. Your cast and stun build with cast and stun immunity. 2. You've got to get recoup, and or your Petrified Blood is level 1-0. So if you did forget to take Petrified Blood at a high level, then you should consider getting more recoup because you need 40% recoup instead. Your Blood Notch is not 50%. So as mentioned earlier, you need a total of 60% damage to regain this life when stunned. So 50% plus mastery is 60. If you have a 45 plus 10, that's 55, right? That means every hit you're gonna lose 5% of your life. Not good. Your flasks do not have the flagellant prefix of +3/+2 charge on hits, and or you forgot to put used flask when full. Next, you took stupid Ultimatum mod. The tier list is already in the video. Refer to that. If you somehow have less than 5k life, you are prone to being one-shot by some mechanics. And the reason for this is you might have forgotten either to take all 6 life masteries, you didn't take Blood Notch, you overrid a life mastery with the new mastery thingies, and yeah. Now things that are not game breaking but are inefficient would be if you took exposure on your build. Sorry to tell you, but exposure does nothing. Chieftain already has -20 to all res by default. Can't be changed. So exposure has no effect. Next up is duplicate supports in your Elder Helmet. So initially, we run Righteous Fire, Efficacy, Burning Damage, and Elemental Focus. If you get a helmet with Burning Damage as a Elder modifier, then you should remove your Burning Damage for Conk Effects or increase AoE, up to you, right? If you get Conk Effects on your Elder Helmets, then it wouldn't change. And lastly, Life Tap / Swift Affliction. So this interaction works by giving the duration tag onto your Righteous Fire through Life Tap, and this gives it the ability to be supported by Swift Affliction. This is commonly used on Pox's build as a 6-link RF, because you can proc your Life Tap on another skill, gain the buff from that skill, and then that will also enable Life Tap on your RF. So if you end up having Life Tap on your RF, but no other sources of Life Tap, then it will never be procced, and you'll essentially be running a 2-link RF. And that should be it, the condensed guide for Cast and Stun Chieftain for 3.26. Any additional questions, ask me in Twitch chat if I'm there. If you don't know the Pantheon, I will include a Patreon for the Pantheon in the description. And many thanks to Linear for editing this video. Pretty much all of it is done by him. And thank you so much. And I'll catch you guys for the next video. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Bye-bye.